so many times the leaders will be coaching a leader who rose into that position because they were so good at what they did and they showed so much promise. But at no point in time did they learn about the art of delegation and how to then raise up the next generation of leaders.
Welcome to Build Your Culture Brand with Dr. Jay Rains. Join us as we discover ways to define, measure, and grow your culture. We want to help you intentionally build a culture that fits you.
Hey leaders, welcome back to the Build Your Culture Brand podcast. I have with me today Christy Krispin, and it's great to have you on the show, Christy.
Thank you very much. It's good to be with you.
So Christy is actually part of our team. She's one of the coaches that coaches leaders that we serve. And so I thought this would be a fun, Christy, I just thought you and I were talking about, wouldn't it be great to dive into a topic and just see maybe what some of our clients have experienced or some thoughts around a particular topic. And today we're going to dive into, in a few minutes, into time management. So, but thanks for taking the time and being on the show. And I just always love interacting with you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be on it. I am an avid listener, so I think I've heard all of the episodes. When you and I first met and started talking, I started listening to the podcast, and I always get something great out of it. So I'm really excited and honored to be a guest.
Christy, I wanted you to be able to share your story too about how you got into coaching, because you've had, other, I think you call them careers, before this. And so first of all, I thought it'd be fun to kind of introduce, how did you even find out about LeadersQ Coaching, that whole thing? There was an event that happened that led to that moment.
Yeah. Well, I had been coaching for several years, but a lot of what I was doing was more coaching and mentor coaching. And I can share a little bit more about that later. But a friend / mentor of mine had encouraged me to pursue becoming a coach through ICF. So I had been doing that, International Coaching Federation. I had been working on that for about a year, and I had launched my own coaching practice, and it wasn't really going very well. I really wasn't getting a whole lot of traction with that. And I was on a hike with my teenage son and his buddy, and the two of them had run off and left me in their dust. So I was walking by myself up this mountain hike about an hour and a half away from where I live. So this was in West Virginia. And I was walking along, and I literally put my hands up, and I looked up and I was like, what do you want me to do? And I was thinking about career. I was thinking about some transitions I was looking to make. And I literally was like, I'm at the end of my ideas. What you got? And I got to the top of that hike, and I met a woman at the top of the mountain, and we ended up getting into a conversation. And that woman was Danette, who's on your team. And she and I, we kind of recognized quickly that we had a lot in common. We were talking at a pretty deep level pretty quickly, having just met on this hike. And so we agreed that we would try to reconnect again, because we found out we both lived in Roanoke, Virginia. So a couple weeks later, I was walking through my neighborhood in Roanoke, and I looked up, and there was Danette walking toward me again. And we were just like, okay, I think we're supposed to be friends. So she and I made plans to get coffee, and that evolved into a friendship. And then around the time I think you were looking to add some members of your team, she connected us, and the rest is history. Here I am.
I just love that story, that you're out doing the things that you love to do. Danette and her husband, they love to hike. They have explored so many of the trails there in Virginia and West Virginia. And so then for y'all to just coincidentally bump into each other is pretty amazing. So one thing that our listeners may not understand or know is that we operate as a team. I think a lot of executive coach companies are, the ones I know about anyway, many of them, they have an executive coach, you hire them, you work directly with them. But the way we've set this up is that we actually function in teams as we work with a team. One of the things you mentioned too, we were talking about how you got into coaching, but and you're coming at this after a lifetime of experience, other experiences. How you have a way of phrasing the phases of your career. How were you talking about that the other day?
Yeah, my career has been in 3 acts. So
Okay.
act one was acting. I was a professional actor for about 10 years. And I'm still a member of Screen Actors Guild, but I'm not really doing any acting these days. But and then my second career was in communications, kind of corporate communications, public relations, that sort of thing, and that was in both the nonprofit and the corporate worlds. And then about 10 years ago, my husband and I became foster parents, and I quit my career to stay home with our children. We became parents overnight of 2 children, and then a year later, a third child. So within 1 year, it was 0 to 3. And I was home with them. But right away, I started to realize how poorly we had been prepared for what was actually going to be facing us as foster parents. And so I began to, it was just like a lot of learning, a lot of workshops and classes and online research and things. And I began to create YouTube videos to help kind of tell prospective and new foster parents, here's what you should really expect, or here's how to really be equipped for this. And so I started the YouTube channel, and then people began to reach out to me, and I would get way more messages than I could respond to. First, I was trying to respond to everybody in email and that sort of thing. And then I decided to start a private online coaching community for new and prospective foster parents. And that's when I really started doing the work of coaching / mentoring. And while I was doing that, this friend encouraged me to get training. And he said, I think that you'd be a great coach, but there's more to it than just sitting around and giving people advice.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
That's awesome.
so I began the process of getting accredited with International Coaching Federation. And I realized how much I actually love leadership coaching and executive coaching. And so I after several years of coaching only foster parents, I closed that chapter. I still do a lot of mentoring of foster parents, but I closed that chapter and just devoted myself to leadership and executive coaching.
Well, Christy, the topic for today, we were really going to dive into time management and think about, some of the things that we see surfacing with the people that we coach, and maybe even some of the best practices that you've been able to use or that your clients have used around time management. And so as you think about the different people you've coached, whether even currently or even from a past act of yours, right? Act 1 or 2, what are some common threads of things that you see pop up among leaders when it comes to time management?
Yeah, I think one of the things is just a lack of awareness of how they're using their time. I think that people overestimate, there is a term for this, and I can't remember what it is in psychology, but it's the overestimating what you're actually capable of doing in a short amount of time. And so you might find, and that can lead to a lot of stress. It can lead to a lot of, frustration because you're not able to accomplish everything you wanted to do. And I think it really boils down to not actually being aware of how you're spending your time. But also there's this common thing I see of people working more than they realize, and having very poor boundaries, let's just say, between work and not work, and not even realizing it, just not realizing it at all. But it all boils down to time management. And then also delegation, which I know we can get into that a little bit, but that's another thing, is just, people trying to do everything. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for kind of framing that out. And so this overestimate, and we can talk about different ways that we help people evaluate that. One thing that came to mind, I do sometimes with my clients, would be to just have them draw a box, like a rectangle on a piece of paper, and have them imagine kind of left side, right side of that box. And I think of it like your inbox. So whatever is the workload that you have of a week, and whether that's 40 or 80 hours or whatever that is, whatever those things are, and then have them imagine on the left side of that inbox, how many things are kind of normal and figured out and have a pattern and have a system. And then how many of those things are just random out of the ordinary and kind of crazy and coming at you. And so it's interesting to have them evaluate, is that 70-30? Is that 40-60? You know, which side seems to be more weighted? And it's always such a interesting reflection moment for the people that I'm coaching of. And then I get to ask the question, well, are you okay with the way it is? Which line do we need to move? Do we need to move more to the process side, or would you like more whimsy and out of the ordinary in your life? But what are some ways that you work with your clients on time management?
I have a tool that I use that consistently blows people's minds, and it is very low tech. Anybody can do it. But I call it a week map, and it's just an Excel spreadsheet with the left column is all half-hour increments for the 24 hours in the day. And I walk people through 4 steps of this week map. And the first step is to block out their ideal sleep, because I think we too often neglect sleep, but it's such a huge and important part of our overall success and well-being, but also just mental clarity. And, you know, if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not going to be at your best for the rest of the time. So anyway, we start with sleep, and then we move on to set appointments or recurring things. So there would be, you know, your team meetings or your extracurriculars or whatever. I mean, however you're doing it, just the things that recur weekly. And then we go through and they plug in how they spend each day. And I'll have them block out the days off. Their days off are supposed to be completely blocked off. And then we'll go through how they spend each day. And then the last thing that we do is we look for white space, and we just pay attention. Where is their white space? Where is their space that is not claimed or accounted for? And we pay attention to that. And then we come back to that white space later, because it's a key part of using this exercise well. From there, we begin to discuss their findings. So what are you seeing as you look at this, you know? And what comes up for people is often, every time, honestly, they had no idea how, for example, how much they were doing on their days off. So I've had several where, you know, I had them block the day off, but then I'm like, okay, well, when, you know, what else is in your week? And they'll say, oh, I have to do this. Oh, well, when do you do that? We're trying to put it in on their work days. They're like, oh, I do that on, you know, Wednesday. I said, well, Wednesday's one of your days off. So when do you do it on Wednesday? And then they plug it in. So that's one thing. But then also they realize that there is not enough time in the week for everything that they are supposed to be accomplishing. That's a huge one. Like, something's going to have to go. And oftentimes it's time off and sleep. Those are the things that go. And so we begin to talk about that. What is this telling you? What do you want to do about that? You know, what could you do about that? And that leads into a wonderful conversation about delegation. And we oftentimes pause whatever we're doing, that we're at the end of that coaching call, we say, okay, let's pick this up next time. And, you know, we want to begin to dive into developing that skill of delegation, which so many times the leaders will be coaching a leader who rose into that position because they were so good at what they did and they showed so much promise. But at no point in time did they learn about the art of delegation and how to then raise up the next generation of leaders. So we talk about that. And then we get to white space, and white space is where we leave room in every day for the unexpected, what you were talking about in your box. You know, I'm a big fan of Greg McKeown, and he talks about in his book, Effortless, all these systems we can put in place to create an effortless approach to life and work and all of this. And a lot of times we have that, but that doesn't take into account the unexpected things. So then that's where white space comes in. I think he calls it margin, but it's just building into your day the expectation that unexpected things are going to happen. And if you don't have white space, you've got no wiggle room. Something's going to have to give. So that's one of my favorite activities. And I have had people say to me, literally, Christy, this changed my life. I had a leader twice. He said to me, after months, he's like, that's still so effective. He's like, my wife recognizes it. My operator recognizes it. And, you know, he's like, I just can't say enough good about it. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, that's what we're here for. You know, we love it.
So good. And what you've done is you've created that awareness. And then they have really the power that I kind of a metric, a way to measure how they're spending their time. And it gives them this sense of control. Like I could actually move a lever here and have a little bit more control over my sleep or a little bit more control over my day off, like people are asking me to do. Or I love that the way you've kind of given them. By the way, we will include a link where if you want to download a copy of Christy's worksheet here, you can go and just look in the show notes there. There'll be a link and you can have an example of how you might do it. You can make up your own way, but we'll give you an example of how you might walk through this on your own and work on your schedule. So thanks for sharing that, Christy.
Yeah. Can I share one other way, since we are kind of doing a mini coaching here, right? Like we're giving a little,
Sure, yeah.
This is another way that this has been helpful is when team members or directors, mostly people that we work with, are going to their boss to ask for an adjustment. Bringing this data with them, it's like, it's not, I'm feeling overwhelmed. It's look at this map that I've created. Here's everything I'm trying to do. And then you can kind of ask your leader, what's your suggestion? What do you suggest I do? And you can begin to kind of work together as a team to address the awareness. A lot of times leaders aren't aware, they're just not aware of what the people on their teams are experiencing. So it can be a tool for that as well.
I agree. I think that, again, we want to raise this awareness, but also it gives them, like you said, a way for them to raise awareness with the people that are actually there, maybe giving them assignments or protecting them. And so giving them that information is really helpful. Now, several things might come out of that conversation, right? One thing we would prepare them for is, well, what if they say, well, you're not using your time wisely, and so how do we create efficiencies within the time that you are spending so it doesn't spill over? So there might be, as a coach, we might walk through a way to create an efficiency, but what might be some other ways to manage being overworked or your work spilling into areas it shouldn't be in? How would you walk down that path?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think there's always opportunities for growth and coaching. And it's not always working with a coach, but just to take a coaching mindset with each other and say, what could be done here? I mean, is this about using time more wisely? Is it about just talking with someone who is doing it well and finding out what they're doing? I mean, there's so many opportunities for how people can begin to either sharpen one another or, yes, work with a coach and find out how they can help you, develop some skills that will help you do a better job of time management.
This is one of those moments, Christy, where, inevitably one client or another might kind of be sitting there waiting for me to tell them the answers. Have you ever had that experience where they're like, okay,
yeah.
Well, you're my coach, tell me what to do. Yes. And, that obviously I might have some ideas, but my ideas aren't going to be nearly as good as their ideas about their own situation. And so one of the roles of a coach, like as you and I know, is to not immediately offer our solution or idea or answer, but to help them explore, because likely they're going to find something so much better than I could offer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we know that if, look, my kids can tell you, I love giving advice. I have some advice to give,
Sure.
But that would not be serving our clients well. And we know that because when someone tells you something, you don't feel a sense of ownership for that. But when you come up with the idea yourself, when it comes from within you, your own awareness, your own idea, your own aha moment, we call them aha moments a lot in coaching. That's when you're like, oh, I see it. Somebody can tell you something and you can go, yeah, I can get that. But when you come up with it yourself, it's that moment of like, of dawning on you. And that's so much more powerful than being given advice. I don't think too many people really want advice. I think they want to own their outcomes, but they don't know how to get there. And it seems like advice might be the best way, but that's why it's important that we're trained, right? I mean, that's why we get trained as coaches to recognize not to fall for it, not to take the bait.
Exactly. I've been studying about free climbing, where you climb the side of a cliff with no ropes, and
My
I
worst
never want
nightmare,
to do it,
Jay.
but I'm
That's
just
my worst
fascinated by
nightmare.
that. Yeah, but one of the things I learned from one of these famous climbers is that when he gets under stress, he actually gets tunnel vision, to where he's so hyper focused on the thing that he's trying to do, or the danger zone that he's in, that he misses seeing maybe a ledge that makes life a lot easier for him and something. And so I think one of the things that you and I are kind of tasked to do, or we love to do as coaches, is let's bring the stress level down in this thing. We're outside of the moment. We're not in the moment with you. We're kind of observing from a distance together, and giving them a chance to think through, wow, what other options could I have in those moments? And really, that's where that tunnel vision kind of opens up into a wider view of, oh my goodness, I have this person right next to me. They're really good at that. Or I love drawing, and drawing helps, whatever that thing is that they could, it's already at their fingertips, but they can use it in those moments. So thanks for pointing that out, that idea of finding a solution on our own.
Yeah, there's a magic question that we come back to a lot in coaching, and it's what else? So you're talking to someone and they're coming up with their idea, or they may say, I don't, and they may come up with an idea, and then you say, that's great. What else? And just getting them to think. And that's that looking for the other ledge. That question is just about looking for the other ledge.
So call to action to our listeners right now. Try that question this week when you're talking to your leaders, and you've gotten an answer from them. Go ahead and ask the question, what else? And see the magic that happens when you ask that question. So there you go. Well, Christy, I love your idea of calendaring and just kind of looking at the week and blocking it out, and even just making sure the kind of what we might call the big rocks are there. When I'm doing time blocking like that, another add-on I'll do with my clients, and whoever's listening, you could use this too when you work through Christy's worksheet, is I go out to some space beside it, maybe the white space, a column along the way, or even just in the calendar on your Google Calendar, and take a look at that week and begin asking, where does this 30 minutes or this hour, is it, and I have them either at a plus, an X, or a minus to that whatever that block is, as they've time blocked. And so a plus would be, I'm just a body adding myself to the effort. So it's not a multiplication moment. It's just me getting shoulder to shoulder with other people and doing the thing, whatever the thing is. And so, it could be like, I ran to the post office and I got the mail. Well, that's a 1+ thing. I didn't multiply myself. It's an activity. It's a task that needed to be done, and I did it. So it's a plus. And so you can put a plus on that. If it's a minus, then it's something that really drains you. It's something where you're putting so much effort into it, and it just, maybe it's something you need to still be committed to, but you're recognizing, hey, this is draining. It could be that team meeting. It could be that, writing those emails, or whatever those activities are. But go ahead and put a minus and recognize this drains me, and I need refreshment after those moments. But then there's the X. And so an X is really a powerful thought to think about during the week, is when in my week, when I do an activity, whether it's a one-on-one with another team member or maybe a team meeting, is that time an X multiplication factor, where the time I'm investing, let's say training someone else to do a job, that's an X factor, because I'm training them then to be able to do that job many times over without me. And so I'm investing to where it's an X factor. Now you can put, an X3 on it, an X2, you could put an X10, you could put X100, but you can evaluate is this a multiplication time for me? And just use those kind of plus and X. And I haven't figured out what to use a division sign for. So if you think of something, you can put it in leave a comment. But it's a way to think about. Now, everything doesn't have to be an X factor, but it's really important to have some things that have an X factor on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good. And this tool, this tool really is about. We talked about awareness. We talked about, it giving you some kind of data for delegation and that sort of thing. But it really is about creating a rhythm of sustaining your leadership at a high level. You can't do that if you're burned out. And this tool really helps you get ahead of burnout, or see if you're seeing it coming. Because if you're consistently burning the candle and pushing and trying to scramble and trying to get it stressed, you're burnout waiting to happen. So it really is about creating longevity for yourself as a leader. And so much of leadership is example. So much is example. So you're setting an example for those who are coming behind you for good time management that's going to set them up for success long-term too. So, talk about multiplication. It really is, you're going to lead by example and show people what it looks like to lead strong, stay healthy, and finish strong.
I love that. If you're a really brave leader, bring that paper to your next team meeting and show it to your coworkers on how you've spent your time. Maybe you want to have a few iterations where you worked on and got better at it, but wouldn't that be an interesting accountability and lead by example moment to say, look, here's how my time goes in the week. And here's where I feel like I get the most out of my week. Here's the things that really drain me, but I'm still committed to them. What an opportunity to lead by example and be vulnerable about your own time and calendar.
It's also very countercultural to do that, because you're coming in and saying, I leave white space in my calendar, which means I don't have that jam packed. I think, I know I came up in this culture of you pack every minute of your day. And if you don't have something going on all the time, you can be accused of being lazy, or you can be accused of, of not working hard enough. And I think for a leader to bring something like that and say, I encourage you to have white space in your calendar, because I know that things come up and I want you to have the space to do it and not have to do it on your day off, or not have to, burn the midnight oil getting the schedule done because you didn't have administrative hours during the day to get it done. So yeah, I think it's a brave thing on a lot of levels and countercultural.
Christy, earlier you alluded to the white space time, and I referenced that as kind of that unexpected, unknown, unformed part of our inbox. One of the things I've noticed about leaders as they move up through an organization is that that's really what they're being paid to handle in a lot of ways. Like, there are just things that come out of business that someone at a higher level needs to be able to handle, so that the owner or, they're not pulled into it. And so for an owner or a CEO or, top leadership to know that there are capable executives out there, or directors out there that can handle situations. So that white space becomes really important, and is important at the level they're at. So just wanted to be able to highlight that we, as a leader, you need to be able to have and be ready for kind of the unexpected. The other part of that, and we can talk about this too, is taking those random, unexpected, weird things that come and systematizing them into something that can be into a system or a process, or something even to be delegated. So I feel like that's a big part of leadership, is one, handling it, and two, making it into a system or process.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I was having a conversation with a leader recently, and she was talking about how there can be a mindset of, we have always just risen to the challenge. So why do we need to have systems? Why do we need to have, why do we need to systematize everything? And I think that's, and she and I agreed that's kind of a mistake in thinking, because systems create kind of a framework for the things that you can predict. And a lot of these things that come up are things that could have been prevented with a better system. Now, not everything. I mean, if heaven forbid some disease runs through, COVID or something, and you have like 6 people calling out, and suddenly you've got, a couple people on that's something you can't really plan for that. But there are so many things that you can plan for, and that's where the systems come in. But anybody who works in a high stakes environment, which are the people that we work with are all in fairly high stakes environments, they know that you can expect the unexpected to happen. You must expect that. And so being able to pivot and having the space to pivot and handle the unexpected it's part of good leadership, I think, preparing for that.
Christy, thanks for taking the time to be on the show. I've enjoyed really kind of diving into this topic and also getting to know your story a little bit better. So what an amazing story you have of just these 3 acts. And I'm just so glad to be a part of Act 3 and have the benefit of your other 2 acts in your life. So that's so much fun. I'm also so grateful for what you do for our team as we learn together. We're always learning about coaching and group coaching or individual coaching together. And also just appreciate what you've done for our clients and how just the rave reviews I get from our clients about how you interact with them. So thank you for your contribution. I have a kind of one final question, as we think about this topic of time management. Someone listening today, maybe they're a leader, maybe they're struggling with time management, as we all do. What would be kind of one main question that each leader should ask themselves to kind of take away and move into application after this podcast?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the question, and we alluded to it earlier, but the question is, where is my time going? Actually, where is it going? And so that's where, the next step for somebody listening right now is download this worksheet, this week map, and take a half hour to fill it out. It may not even take that long. In fact, it doesn't, because I do it with clients all the time. It takes 5 minutes. It can be such a key 5 minutes of you looking at this finished worksheet and being able to answer the question, where is my time going? And that's when you can really begin to make some changes. All change begins with awareness. And once you become aware, then you are empowered to take that next step and start to make whatever changes need to happen. And sometimes you'll need to get some, you'll need to maybe you'll benefit from talking with someone about what changes actually you're going to make. But that is such a key thing. So that's the question. Where is my time going? Do the worksheet. You'll answer that question and suddenly you'll be like, oh, that's where it's going. Now I can get busy making some positive changes.
Wonderful. I love it. Thanks for summarizing that and getting that clear point out there. So thank you, listeners, for joining us today on this episode of Build Your Culture Brand. You can go to buildyourculturebrand.com and find this episode, and also be able to see these show notes and any of your podcatchers, or they're on YouTube. So follow these links that we mentioned in here, even for the downloadable, if you want to get that. And we just appreciate you listening and love to hear more from you in the future.
Thank you for listening to Build Your Culture Brand with Dr. Jay Rains. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, comment, and share. You can also visit our website at buildyourculturebrand.com.